Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are and whenever you are. Welcome to the community live stream. This is March 25th, 2019, and this is the show that helps you become a more effective ServiceNow administrator and developer by giving you not only the answers to the community, but the thought process, the journey of discovery, the exploration that goes into finding those answers. Sometimes we don't know where we're going with this show. It's completely random. I pull information from the community and I say, let's get started. If you're watching this on YouTube, very much thank you. And you know what? I didn't start up AirDroid. Don't know if I have to today, but there are a mere 40 days left till knowledge. And that sounds kind of biblical, doesn't it? 40 days and 40 nights. And I'll probably be working all of them. If you're watching on YouTube, thank you very much. Subscribe to the channel that you see right there on the bottom of the URL and turn on those notifications. You'll get notifications when we do this show. It's when I'm home. It's when I'm healthy. It's when I'm awake. Because it is 6 a.m. here, and I try very, very hard to bring you the content because I'm always learning, always growing, always sharing, and want to share that information with you so that you can avoid some of the bumps and pitfalls along the way. Turn on those notifications. You get notification, and let's see, did it come up? Yes, it came up. Ta-da! There it is. So don't get to show you on the other screen at the moment. So good morning to Carolyn. She is on the spot. She's got it ready to go. And also do this on Twitch. So if you're watching over there, thank you very much. I know it's a small percentage that watch on Twitch, but appreciate it nonetheless. So giving everybody a chance to get their videos up and running while I keep the vocal cords lubricated with some herbal tea. What else we got? We got the community, which is over at community.servicenow.com. So if you're on YouTube or Twitch, give me a shout out. Say, hello, how are you? Where's the weather? How's the weather? Not where's the weather. The weather's probably all over you. How's the weather? But if you've got something more in depth, you've got a ServiceNow question, you want to know about properties or tables or scripts, please put that in the ServiceNow community because that way you'll get a better chance of your question being answered. More subject matter experts in the community available to answer your questions. Get it in the right forum. If you're asking a question about reporting, put it in the performance analytics and reporting section. If you're asking a question about IT service management, ITSM is a good place to put that so that you get the people that are in that area of expertise. A lot of stuff just gets dumped into developer and doesn't really have much to do with developers. And while we're all happily willing to try, we want to make sure you don't miss an opportunity to meet your target audience. Good morning, Ellen. Great to see you as well. I know that March has been a rather thin month as far as this series is offered up. Lots of priorities jumping in front of this and lots of business trips and whatnot. It will likely continue into April. I'll bring you as much content as possible because, like I said, there's always something to share. Good morning, Kobe. Buenos dias. We have, let's go into the developer portal. Developer portal is over at developer.servicenow.com. That's what it says right there. And you can get yourself a free personal developer instance, free learning plans, get yourself started and actually continue your growth. Even if you've already started becoming a ServiceNow developer, you can continue the growth to learn more over at developer.servicenow.com. The references to all of the scripting APIs, I will more than likely be looking at that sometime today. There's meetups, blogs. The blogs now have comments on the feedback. So if you are logged in and you happen to go to the blog menu over here on the right, you can see here is the conditioner builder logic that Andrew had written. And down at the bottom of all of his wonderful information is a comments. I don't know if they're moderated or if they get posted immediately. I suspect they're moderated because we've got to log in and we know who wrote them. So, I suspect they're posted immediately. I don't believe they're moderated, but we'll find out. So we've got that. We've got the meetups, as I mentioned, on the events menu page. Lots of them coming up. Mumbai tonight or today or right now. In a half hour, get going. I suspect that might be where some of you are. New York tomorrow night. We've got Dusseldorf. We've got Columbus. A lot of them this week. Boston. Oh, I was just there last week. I wish they had their meetup the night before. That would have been an awesome Thursday night. But Helsinki, Chennai, and many more to come. Not as many in March and April because everybody's ramping up for Knowledge. Some people do like to get in front of that and have a pre-Knowledge meeting or have one that they right after and say, hey, what did we learn? What did we get? I think Phoenix is looking for one right before, but Mike is out of town. He spends half of his time in another state with his family. And anyway, go over to meetup.com. Believe I have that right there. Meetup.com/pro/ServiceNow dev program is where you can find all those. Look, we broke 15,000 members right there at the top of the screen. We've got 15,025. Thank you very much. That's great. And we've got a lot more coming. So share the information with your friends. Share the information with your colleagues. Let them know this is the place to be. The developer meetups are a wonderful place to talk to like-minded people and learn and share, explore, much like this. It's a community in real life. So, Nikhil, hello to you. We got meetups out of the way. Next is Knowledge. Knowledge 19 is coming up May 5th through 9th. You've heard me talk about this. 40 days. 40 days. And there's a lot of stuff to do between now and then. This is when anxiety mode starts to kick in. There's workshops to be tested. There's documentation to write. There's demos to be done. There's videos to be made. There's a lot to be done in the next 40 days. I always think that, if I can get in front of a lot of this, it won't be as bad as it is. Well, it's crazy time of year. This is when it really gets out of control. And we are working very, very hard to bring you hands-on workshops, bring you the best keynotes, bring you the latest information about Madrid, and even a sneak peek into the next release. New York is coming. Good morning to everybody who's joining. We will be at the same place as last year. So if you're at Knowledge 18 at the Sands Expo Convention Center, connected to the Palazzo and Venetian in Las Vegas, Nevada. Nevada? I think it's Nevada. Somebody corrected me on that. Now I can't remember which way is right because I keep correcting myself. The same location. If you haven't been there, there's lots of maps. It's easy to get around. There's going to be lots of people there wearing shirts that say, Ask Me. So you can simply ask them. They are hired by the people who put the conference together. We contract those people out. They know where each room is and how to find what you need to find, whether it is food or a workshop or get a new badge. Hopefully you don't lose your badge. So lots of fun on that. So much left to build. Oh my goodness. It's crazy time. Having a good time. So I hope to see you there. Knowledge 19. If we don't see you there, maybe you can. There will be quite a bit of the content, the keynotes. Many of the CreatorCon sessions will be posted to video afterwards. Might take a while to get those, whether it's June or July. I think I had them posted in late June last year. So some of that stuff will be coming through various channels, whether it's the ServiceNow community, the dev portal. Watch for those as well. So Knowledge coming up. We do not have the next information on the next Tech Now. However, oops, I did not mean to put that away. Let's get that back. Let's put that up there. The next Tech Now is coming up on April 30th. We're going to be covering Integration Hub and Flow Designer, all the new stuff that came out in Madrid. This is sort of a Delta program because there's a lot of new stuff. I'm working on putting the slide content and the demo together so that we can bring you all the good information about Madrid and Integration Hub, focusing specifically, as I said, Flow Designer and Integration Hub has a lot of new actions and capabilities that have come out. Good morning, Rajendra. We have... let me get back down in the corner. We have one more. Any script that is being written today will be available on GitHub at the repo that you see at the bit.ly link. I will also put it in the comments on the YouTube video, and the link will be available in the community post. So right after I turn off the camera, I collect up all the articles that we've hit, all the code, all the discussion topics, and post them back to the community with a link to each article that we cover. And a link to the GitHub repo. So if you're looking for information, that's the place to go. You look for video community live stream, the date on there, or you can go to, the other way around is to go to YouTube, and there is a now, I did have it on there a minute ago. Yes, that user/ServiceNow community. There is a community live stream, put the title away now that we got that, community live stream playlist, and we'll have the video there. So they cross-link each other is the short answer to what I'm saying. Let's get started with the community. So let's go back to there. And this is the community, as I mentioned, community.servicenow.com. Do a quick refresh, see if there's anything in the inbox that needs answering. Not at the moment. I'm going to look at unreplied and see what we can find. Are the ServiceNow release logos, the city icons, available somewhere? We only started using the logos recently. The icons, and I assume they're looking for things like this. Madrid, London, Kingston. You see Kingston, Jakarta, Istanbul, Helsinki don't have the logos anymore. I am going to respond. Yeah, that's what they're looking for. Are they available anywhere you know these? I was just thinking, since I like to use them in some of my presentations with high quality, for example, showing up. I would. We only started using those logos in the past couple releases, so you won't find them back to Aspen. I also believe these are they actually images or are they SVGs? They are SVGs, so they are scalable. If they're looking for them in high quality, what I would recommend, the logos are SVGs, so they are scalable. If you want a high res, high res, come on, fingers. If you want a high res version, zoom in on your browser so the image scales up and take a screenshot. Then you can scale it down. That way you won't get pixelation. If you're looking for, you are looking for previous releases to the ones available on docs.servicenow.com. Let me know, and I might be able to put you in touch with someone who might know. Not a very concrete answer, but so that is probably one of the least technical questions I've seen on the community, but fascinating. So if you zoom in on your browser, of course, it will scale these up, and they don't get pixelated because they are, what are they, vector-based? You see there's no pixelation as you zoom way in. I am way, way in on this. And then you could take your screenshot, grab that. I know it's on kind of a funky background here as you cursor over it, but if you cursor away from it, you could get that blue. So if you want light blue background or you want a white background, light blue, white blue, white, you get the idea. Let's get that back down to reasonable demonstratable mode. That'll be good, 150. There's one. Configure list layout, display column based on condition values from 2 fields. Ooh, we don't have conditional column display at this point. I like the idea. I think it might be a little confusing as to what the conditions. I need to create a column in a list which is the result of one of 2 values based on a condition. For example, if I need to show a column which would be drawn from a demand or a project depending on status, how would the script look to do that? I don't think it's possible to hide physical columns. Well, every record's going to have a different condition. I don't understand what the... we don't have conditional column viewing at this point. I suggest you use, What can we do to hide the value in that column? An ACL to display or hide the value for each record. Since each record could have different conditions. Example, record 1 could be state equals open and priority equals 1. So show short description, for example. Record 2, state equals closed and priority equals 2. Don't show short description. In your scenario, you want to modify the list based on a condition. I know mine is a little hokey, but each record could contradict. With an ACL on each record, you can show or hide the values in that column, rather than the whole column itself. It's one thought. Good morning, Steve. Good morning, Carol. Good morning, Paulo. SPH Music Videos, long time. Apurva is joining us. Everybody's get online. Thank you very much. I have been busily hacking away on some applications, and of course, when I do that, I make notes of things that I learned that I want to share with you. There's been some good information. Let's do a quick refresh of that screen now that we've answered a couple. Unreplied. How to use RSA encryption keys to encrypt a string. Ooh, you know what? I know just enough about encryption to be dangerous, but I don't know what they're asking here. We have a requirement where we need to integrate with a third-party tool using a REST method. We've given an RSA public key and need to encrypt a given string using RSA encryption before passing it to the tool using POST. We know of Glide Encryptor API, which uses triple DES encrypted by default. How do we use RSA encryption? I am going to subscribe to that one. I would like to know. But I'd also encourage a quick look through RSA encryption. Create and configure the RSA key pair for digital signature. Key store management. Set up outbound technology keys. Key management. Edge encryption, that's going to be different. Add additional, let's see, RSA and REST. Let's look for that. Is there anything? REST test steps, set REST. I don't see anything about in here about RSA. The only mention of RSA is right near the top. Yeah, that's not going to get us anywhere. Okay, I'm going to stay subscribed to that one. That one is intriguing to me. I like integrations. That's where my specialty lies. If you see me skipping over some of these questions, it's not because I don't like you. It's because it's not in my forte, although I may explore like I just did. But my knowledge is around custom applications, integrations, and the platform in general. Sanesh, hi Chuck. This is a very common and basic question, but different parts of the docs and community always contradict. Which record ACL executes first, field or table? I'm glad you asked that. I have gone by, where is it? Contextual security. There is a page that has a wonderful table on it that I always go by. And we search for that. I believe this is the one, because it has a nice little bulleted list, and it's not the one. Okay. Create a role-based system roles. Rule search order. There it is. So if you look for rule search order in the docs, you will see an explicit rule on itself, and it goes up the chain. So, for example, incident number. If it finds an ACL on incident number, it will use that. Period. You're done. You can almost think of these in a reverse order. And that might be where your confusion is coming from, because it does a lookup on these first and says, okay, do we have a star.star? Yes, I'll use that unless something overrides it. So then it would go to number 5 and say, do we have a task.star? But this is the order in which it will take them. It uses the field specific, then it goes to field specific on any parent tables, working its way up the hierarchy, then star.field, then table.star, then parent table.star, then star.star. So this is the way they are evaluated. The search is done in this order. That's the one I always go to, because sometimes I forget what comes first, star.number or incident.star. It's usually somewhere in the middle that I get a little confused. ACLs go from bottom to top, i.e. field, row, table, parent. Yeah, there's your answer. That was a good question. I can answer that. I can save that to the notes so that I don't forget that we talked about this. I did have one that came up before the show started, and this also is on import sets. It says moving import sets and transform maps from dev to test or other instances. First thing to know is the structure in which imports happen. So if I go to, I'm trying to remember which instance I did this on. I think it was on this one. The first piece is you need to set up a data source. Where is my original information coming from? Is it coming from a spreadsheet? Is it coming from my SQL database? Is it coming from something in between? The first step is to look up a data source. And I am going to bring up Studio, show you how that kind of goes. And believe it's still here from when we were working on our workshop. So in Studio, under Inbound Integrations, there's Data Source. You can also find this underneath System Import Sets, Data Sources. Now, just to show you that it's exactly the same, we have our conference import from, this one happens to be a JDBC from a MySQL database. I'm going to, as I mentioned, pull that up in Studio, so I can have multiple things open at the same time. So the conference import defines where it's coming from. Is it JDBC? Is it LDAP? Is it a file? I've done many spreadsheet imports. Did one on Friday just for the TechNow attendees and questions and answers from the last show. The rest of it is setting up the data around that, defining the definition of what that data source is. Once you've got that defined, then you load the records from that data source into an import set table, and it will create a field for each of those import set records. They may not match, and oftentimes they don't, what's going to be in the target table. We don't take things from the target table. Now, when it does that, it creates what we call an import set table. Those are staging tables. They're very transitory, and they don't get captured by the update set or the application that you're building. The data source does. The import sets do not. So the first thing I corrected on that article was, hey, you know what? Import sets don't get captured, so you're not going to move those. What you really want to move is your data source. That does get captured, and that will be in the update set. The second step is to take that information from the import set and map it, do the field mapping, do any transformations, do any crazy stuff that you need to do in the transform. And that's in a related list. You can also create it through Studio or through the import set menu, you name it. I always find these to go in a logical order of do the data source, load the import records, work on the transform map. And this says, here is my source table, import set. Here is my target table, the final destination, and then any rules. You could potentially run a script if you want to run a script right after each record or before each record is inserted into the target table. You could do transformation. Common use case that I always do is, is it maybe the date format needs help? Maybe employee IDs need cleaning up? Whatever it happens to be, you could do that. You could use our auto matching fields if the fields in the import set closely match the fields in the target table. This helps set up the field maps down below. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. You can always go to the mapping assist, which gives you a visual representation of the source fields on the left and the target fields on the right, and you map them together to say price goes with cost. That would have been an issue. Glad I knew that, because the auto mapping assist didn't catch that. It actually missed one of them. And then finally, you set up your coalesce. These are the key values that tell ServiceNow when should I insert a new record versus when should I update an existing record. If you have an employee ID, you coalesce on employee ID. Email address is another common one when you're doing people. If it's a piece of equipment, it could be the serial number, it could be the MAC address, you name it. What is it that makes that unique so that if you see it multiple times, you know that you're updating a record and not getting multiple records in the final target table. So the transform map comes across as well, as do all the field maps in this related list or any transform scripts, but the import sets do not come across. Now, someone suggested, why don't you just do an export of XML once you've got it into test or it's into dev? They said, unfortunately, I can't do that. They want to maintain this import capability. So I think it might have just been a terminology, but I wanted to clarify that import sets don't get captured by update sets. Data source, yes. Transform map, yes. Field maps, yes. Transform scripts, yes. All of that gets there because that's what it takes to do the import. I did this from the TechNow dev to the TechNow prod. Modified scripts and transforms and data sources on TechNow dev, brought that update set over to TechNow prod, and ran that import so that I had the information in production. Whew. Okay, image from Helsinki, but still up to date for ACLs. Okay, sorry, just catching up on the comments in the video. Having a good discussion over there. Thank you very much. That is my one comment before the show started, so let me close that out. Looks like we do have something in the inbox to answer. Bottom of the hour. Time flies. Going very fast. Let's see what's in the inbox to keep the conversation going. And then I may switch over and do something else. Configure the list layout. Ken has replied. So through scripting, I can't display a single value from one of two sources depending on conditions. How could I create a column in a script if I wanted to add a string to an existing column? Thank you for your response. I need a little bit more example on that. I'm not really understanding what a screenshot would be very helpful. Can you elaborate on what you are doing with some examples? And perhaps screenshot mock-ups. I'm not entirely clear on the objective. Seek first to understand, right? Objective. I knew I was spelling something wrong there. Okay, inbox cleared. I'm going to take a quick look at some of my notes from this previous weekend. Oh, if you are going to knowledge, here's a couple of things that you might be able to catch me at. CCW 515, build your first app in an hour. The first 8, those bold ones, are builder labs. So encourage your colleagues who don't consider themselves developers. If you're seeing spreadsheets being emailed around the organization, get these people to knowledge, please, and send them to these 8 workshops to understand how easy it is to create an application, get started building tables, put fields on there, UI policies, data imports, that kind of thing. It can be done all with no code, and they will be further along and help transform the organization away from spreadsheets into a single source of record and route work throughout the enterprise. That's what we do, and that's how we can help them do that. So the first 8 there, take a look. They're on the schedule if you go to knowledge.servicenow.com. The other ones are a bit more fun, at least I think so. We've got 3 Jeopardy games on Tuesday, 1 in the middle of the day, 2 during the evening social hour. Looking forward to that. I did put some finishing touches on the Jeopardy application. We now have a final Jeopardy that works. I learned a few things about Service Portal and AngularJS on how to get multiple inputs and make them dynamic. NG model can get really messy if you're down into it. We've also got a couple of developer theater sessions on top of that. application patterns, what works, what doesn't. Again, this might be good for your builders to understand when should I build on ServiceNow and when ServiceNow may not be a good fit. We've also got, of course, at the beginning, what's happening at CreatorCon. All kinds of good stuff. Lily and Andrew and a number of people will be there on that panel to discuss what you can expect. These developer theater sessions are 30 minutes long, probably more like 20 minutes, and then some Q&A. And then my favorite, I don't have it nearby, but the IoT workshop to integrate the Amazon Dash button. Okay, I have a Dash button nearby with ServiceNow so that you can send and receive those messages. Lots of use cases around that. I'm hearing every day more people are starting to use these things to provide better service, get notifications about where service is needed, and very happy with the way that has taken off. I know Steve has a couple of those things. You can also find me in the Hack Zone and in the CreatorCon session. So as you go in the main doors into the expo hall, and CreatorCon will be off to the, would that be the right? It'll be off to the right. The Hack Zone is going to have things like, I don't think LiquorBot's coming back, but Jason's got a new exhibit, kind of the cousin of LiquorBot. I'm going to have one about a fitness center that's running on ServiceNow. Fingers crossed we can get this all pulled together in time. Like I said, lots to build. Starting to see hardware to build this out. So fitness center, my vision last year was I want to see people doing jumping jacks. I want to see people doing warrior pose. I want to see people going around in the Hack Zone and participating in these interactive sessions. The builder space is where we're going to have some of these mini labs around building applications very quickly. And then, of course, the hackathon. I'm really excited to see what people come up with for ideas and what they build every year. This is very exciting, very creative, and inspiring as to how quickly you can turn some of these things out. So that's where you can find me. I am going to go down to my potential topics list, bring up another document. And we covered some of these before, so the list is going to get a little further down. Using custom fonts in a service portal. This was rather interesting, and I found this through an article that Nathan Firth wrote a couple of years ago, and he's got 3 options in here. That's going to be a little big. Option 1 is you go through Google Fonts. The font I was looking for, and I will show you on my TechNow Dev Jeopardy page, bring that up. I wanted the official ServiceNow font on this page. So when I log into my dev instance, make that a wee bit bigger, go to my Jeopardy games. Of course, they're going to be on a favorite right at the bottom. I can actually bring up the service portal right there. It's easier. There's my, come on, there it is. So I wanted this. This is a logo at the top, but I've got an image and text. And then, of course, when you go into each of the games, it has that same font throughout. Harder to recognize in uppercase, I'll grant you that. But the font here, I know this is being a little nitpicky, is a licensed font called Gilroy. And if you've purchased fonts before, you know they give you Gilroy, Gilroy Bold, Gilroy Italic, Gilroy Bold Italic. There's like 8 different files in this. So I found Nathan's article very helpful. I was not able to use option 1. The other one that's really close that we use is Century Gothic, just in case you're wondering. Century Gothic is available in PowerPoint and whatnot, but for whatever reason, it's not available on Google Fonts unless you buy it. So I said, no. I've already got Gilroy. Let's see what we can do. So I went to option 2, and this was an ability, and he gives very good instructions on how to download a version that you can then put into ServiceNow. So I used option 2. It converts the font into something that ServiceNow can use. Got it in there. The other option is, I believe, to reference it as an attachment. So mine was in option 2. When I went to, I think it was in the CSS section under Service Portal, CSS, I am going to close that, get the date updated on here so that it can sort from lowest to highest, highest to lowest, whatever it is. And here's my Gilroy font.css. you get back a file that you then reference in here. And this thing is stupid long. Like, it goes on and on and on, but it doesn't matter. It's just going to be referenced. Then, once you've got that in there, you can see there's a horizontal scroll bar at the bottom. These lines go on. That's just defining the font and how it will look, how it's drawn on the screen. Easy to do. Go back to reference the article, and there you have it. Now, when I reference it in my widget, which I can look at in Studio, I've got to get to the instance. Stay there. Sorry about all the jumping around. If I go to the widget editor in Service Portal, and Service Portal configuration brings up this lovely page, which still has the old logo on it, even though I'm on Madrid. And I look at the Jeopardy. Oh, where is it? I think it's the Jeopardy home. Jeopardy home. That's it. I can then reference it in the CSS the way you normally would. So I can say, hey, go use Gilroy Bold or Century Gothic if those are available, which I don't think they are. But because that font is now packaged with my application, I know that the widget and the font will stay together and it will be represented accordingly wherever I install it. And now it just becomes, here's my image, here's my logo or my text, and that gets rendered that way. So easy to do. There's a couple of options. See which one's right for you. Installing custom fonts on Service Portal is possible, and it's going to be imperative if your organization is all about branding. A lot of times there is a specific font for your organization, and you can do this. You can do this. I recommend starting here, looking for using custom fonts in Service Portal. Again, I will put that in the show notes. I will make sure that I put it in the show notes because I will do it right now. So under the CLS show notes, we're going to put boom, boom, done. I'll clean that up in a sec. So that's tip number 1, using custom fonts. Did that. You're going to see a lot of these come from the same examples. Oh, come on. Format, text, strike through. Shift X. I was using the Evernote key shortcut. There was another one down here. The other one that I picked up this weekend is using NGModel. Now, I've used NGModel before on Service Portal widgets. Let's go edit another one. Service Portal widgets. The Jeopardy card, which looks an awful lot like this. If I go to, say, Game 1, and I pick WTF, mid, as in mid server, stands for this. Okay. The NGModel, I think I showed this to you before when this field is currently read-only. Can't get to it. But if I get the daily double, then I do. NGModel binds the data on the form to the data in the data model. So when you build a Service Portal widget, you've got, let's put the CSS away. And the flow that I always think about this is from right to left. I set things up in my server script. You could do this as an onload thing. You could do this as, hey, I don't have any data. I'm going to go need it. There's a number of ways you could do this, and there's discussion about best practices for each. There's even a workshop about advanced Service Portal widget techniques that walks you through each one of these to make your widget a little better and a little better and a little better. I am probably on a scale of 1 to 5, about a 3 or a 4. I haven't achieved that ultimate Service Portal widget efficiency status. I'm not using templates as where I should be. Anyway, so I set up data in the data object on the right in the server script. It is also available to the client script and the HTML. The challenge is, what if I change something in the HTML and I want to reflect it in the data model? That's where NGModel comes into play. And what I needed was for the Final Jeopardy widget. So if I go back to my board, Final Jeopardy, and it says, okay, place your wager. And during the game, Michael might have $1,000 and say, I want to wager $1,000. Each of these 3 inputs are 3 distinct inputs. They're not all the same because Michael may wager 500 and Mark may wager $1,500 and Tom may wager $3. So it's up to them. And then if they get it right, I add this to their total. And if they get it wrong, they don't. And I also want this little dynamic thing here. I'm thinking about the way that the game flows on TV. They make a wager, then they see the question, and then they try to answer it. So before you see what the question is, you have to place your bet. And what I was struggling with is this array, if you will, of inputs until I discovered that it can be done. A little bit of experimentation. Let's go to Jeopardy Final widget. Everything was fine. I'm going to take this apart step by step. So in the server script, same kind of thing. I set up the card, I set up the players, get the data that I want to consume, and then put that on the HTML template. In this case, I did it with tables instead of divs. I was getting too confused on divs. I couldn't take things off without breaking the whole widget. So at the top, I've got my icon to allow me to go back to the board. That's the first table. There's just a little table there. Then there's a second table. There's a major table that runs all the way around, and there are basically two cells, a right cell and a left cell. In the left cell, I have 1, 2 other tables. And in that same row, I have the display down here. So just giving you an idea what the layout is like. The players are listed from here to here. Now, ng repeat is a way to iterate over that data. ng repeat is like a for each loop for each player in data.players. Data.players is an array of objects, and I've got the 3 players in that array, and then I know how much they've won, what's their name, what's their user ID. There's several properties within each object that I want to get my hands on. And then display them this way. Here's the player's name, a non-breaking space, and there's also a winnings. This is where I got into what each person's winning is and how much they're willing to wager. And then a little bit of formatting for that. Say I want it to be currency. This line displays this piece right here. Michael Slobodnik, $0 in parentheses. All right. Still keep your eye on that winnings thing. I'm going to come back to it, especially with that dollar index. That was the key to making this work. A little later on, I have what is the input. So I call it player _ player ID. The curly braces mean I'm using live data. Interestingly enough, you don't use those everywhere. And then ng model says, what amount are they going to be used? So I have 2 arrays here, amount and winnings. Winnings is how much they've won so far. And notice none of this is set up in the server script. That's done in the client script. So the client script I treat as 2 parts. One is run this stuff on load, which is everything in the client script from about here to here. You know, little more, until you start getting to functions. Scope update player is a function. Scope showboard is a function. Those are the ones that I use on click. So when the up thumb or the down thumb is clicked, those get run. But everything up here is run. What I'm doing is setting up 2 arrays. One is the amount they want to bid, which is used for the input field. The other is the winnings, which I want to display. And I want that live. So if Michael has $1,500 and wagers another 5 and gets it wrong, it will dynamically go down to $1,000. Making live widgets makes them very, very easy to use. So you have to understand what's in my data model, because the data model, as we showed, is available to your server script, your client script, and the HTML. Well, if the HTML is modifying that, you want what's called a 2-way binding. So I'm setting up these arrays, 3 players, so I need 3 amounts and 3 winnings. That's what lines 5 and 6 are telling me. Then I go and populate the winnings based on the player's amount. That's how much they've won so far. I got that from the server script. It set up the players array, and because I said it had 3 players with their various properties, the amount they've won, their sys all that good stuff, I'm just stuffing that into the array. So position 0 is Slobodnik, position 2 is OD, position 3 is Cully. If you want to call him that, go ahead. That's it. The second part here that you see is just populating via a REST API the answer for the current card, so that I think I showed you this. When it's on the phone, I'll see the final Jeopardy question. Same kind of thing as when we're displaying any other question. So going back to the HTML, that's really just a setup. It says, what are you doing? I am creating a scope amount and a scope winning. Those are variables in my widget. That's what the $scope is. And don't forget, if you use $scope, you must declare it up at the top of the function. I think I get caught on this on every new widget that I create. I forget HTTP, then I forget window. And so if you're using something that isn't natural JavaScript, probably you need to put that into the function declaration. I've seen these things go on and on and on with about 20 different objects they're declaring. So that's the client script setup part. Then it just becomes using it. Now, ng repeat, as I mentioned, is like a for each loop. As such, it has an index. And I found this by looking at, I believe it was a Microsoft document. Just going and Googling ng repeat. There it is, AngularJS API. And in ng repeat, make that a little bigger, I discovered it has these hidden attributes. I went, oh, ooh, neat, first, last, middle, even, odd, if you wanted to have your rows alternate. This is pretty cool stuff. I said, I've got an index. Well, how about that? And it starts at 0. That's perfect for arrays. That's freaking awesome. So I went back here and said, well, if I've got winnings index, now I can get a look at Michael's winnings. Winnings is part of the scope. It's not just something I made up. So I can access it like that. Then, when we do the ng model, in the input tag, same kind of thing with amount index. Index is still coming off of this ng repeat. This is the row. Each row has its own index. I can pull that out and say, I now have 3 distinct fields. How do I access that when somebody clicks one of these buttons to update the player to a correct answer or an incorrect answer? That goes back to the client script. The client script has a method called updatePlayer. I'm going to close that for a second. And updatePlayer takes the order 0, 1, 2, takes the player ID, sysid, player name, just for fun, and the answer correct or incorrect, which is a string. If it's correct, I just multiply times 1 or minus 1 if it's incorrect, so that they lose $500 instead of gain $500. That way I have the same function to do both. Kind of nice. Then I set up my REST API. The REST API is a call to the underlying script include functions to say, go update Slobodnik, take $500 away from him, and tell me what his final total was. That's really what the script include and the REST API do for each other. I mentioned this before. I build these widgets in a layered technology with a base functionality and a script include. So that I can say, if I update a player, I want to know which sysid and how much, and you tell me what the result was when you're done. Then I build the REST API on top of that and test that out through the REST API Explorer. Then I typically call my service portal widgets using those update methods. It's a little bit more code, but hey, so what? It's easier to test. If something breaks down or you need to modify a parameter, you can do that through the stack. So this calls the same player update REST API as when you're playing the game. Hey, you won $500, you lost $200, that kind of thing, all through there. And it sends that off using this HTTP method. I am planning to make this entire application public via GitHub right after knowledge. So don't bother writing all this stuff down, but it is interesting to note. It uses this, what do they call these? Answer functions. There's a then, and then there's a if it fails. So if it works, it says success. If there's a failure, it says failure. So I print a message, but I also capture the amount that came back from the script include. I didn't realize I was doing this, from the REST API. I didn't realize I was doing this until I looked at it and went, I'm passing back the grand total. Didn't know that. It was kind of a bonus to me because then I can update scope winnings order. what that does is reflects it back on the page. Because remember, scope is a global variable. The order tells me which one. Is this Slobodnik's winnings or is it O'Donnell's winnings? Let me show you that in action. So Slobodnik, we're going to assume he has some amount. He bets $1,000. OD says, I will also bet $2,000. And Kali's not so confident. He bets $300. Then we show them the question, and apparently we have a bug. But if they answer the question correctly, I had that working last night, I swear. It might be a data issue too. I can go check real fast. What's my, like in the games, did I put, I don't even know what game I'm on. I think I'm on game 1. Does game 1 even have a Final Jeopardy question? No, which is why it's right there. Okay, let's do that again. Let's say the Final Jeopardy question is REST. What does REST stand for? That was my fault. Data issue, not a bug in the app. Although I could put up a nice message that says, hey, there's nothing in the app. Okay, so let's do that again. 1,000, okay, 100 is good, 200 is good, $3. Then they show them a question, REST, what does REST stand for? I've got the answer on my phone at this point because record watcher and all that good stuff. And note the totals next to their name. If Tom, what was your answer? And he gets it wrong, I take that and it puts a message at the top, says, sorry, Tom, you got $3 taken away. And his total is -3. There are use cases in your service portal widgets. This is still one big widget. You could communicate between two widgets using events. Not going to talk about that right now. But using the scope variables and the NG model means you can tie the form information, whether it is on an input, such as amount, or whether it's being displayed, such as winnings, the array, both arrays, to the underlying data very easily. And $index on that array was key to making that happen. Yes, I did a number of Stack Overflow searches for this information to inspire me, but it turned out to be much easier than what I was seeing on Stack Overflow. The other challenge with Stack Overflow is to understand that we are using AngularJS 1.5, whereas some of those questions may involve solutions that are on AngularJS 4 or even later. So keep that in mind when you look for these solutions. So Cully's got -3, OD gets it right, Slobodnik gets it right. We print out those, and if we go back to the board, we should see 100, 200, and -3 across the top because that's right from their records on this particular instantiation of the game. So that's my information on the data model, NG model, passing information back and forth. That was a whole lot of fun. Gordon says, row 9 is really confusing when you put the player amount in scope.winning and not scope.amount. They're two different variables, Goran. I apologize for not seeing that earlier, but the amount is what they're wagering. That's what's going in. The winnings is setting up from the existing data, because back on the game record, I say, who are my players and what have they won? Let's refresh that. That's coming out of the game to player table. Michael is on this game. He's won this amount so far. So that's I'm taking that data from the record into the data.players array and then transferring that to winnings. Could I have done that somehow without using the amount or the winnings? Possibly. I could have done players sub something in here, but I don't know. I found it easier just to call out a variable. I'm not above trashing a little bit of memory for readability, for traceability, because when I get it down to the last part and say, what is their amount? What is their winning so far? I guess you're right. I could have named these a little bit better, because in the data object, it's player.amount. That's how much they've won so far. My variables are named poorly. I'll admit that. There are some rough edges around this application, if you want to go there. Was there another short topic that I got to? I know that wasn't terribly short. So I can remember how to do it. It was I got to stop using the Evernote shortcut on that. Yeah, let's do notification templates real quick. So going to my TechNow example, I'm going to switch applications here. You can tell what I've been working on mostly lately. Let's get rid of the AngularJS page. This is something that came out in, I want to say Jakarta, is not templates, but layouts. Let me switch to the TechNow application. Yeah. File, switch, TechNow. All right. So we're all familiar with notifications. Very simple, easy to construct. I've got one that's a little more complex because it's event triggered, and I pass in a rather complex object as one of the event parameters. I will, if I haven't talked about that before, I will in a little bit. Not under navigation, under notifications. And here is my thank you for your question. Here are your questions you asked. There are links to those. That's why I needed to consolidate those all up into one notification. But this shouldn't come as any surprise to any of you, is when is it send? When the event is fired. Okay. Who will receive it? Event parm 1 receives it. What it will contain is down here, hello so-and-so, thank you for your question. Your questions have been answered. I use a mail script to inject the links based off of the object in event parm 2. There's even, I like this part, the mail script that changes the header so that it doesn't say from so-and-so at technow.servicenow.com. It says from no reply. I think it's a little more obvious that you're not going to get a response. There's no point in replying to this because we're not going to respond to it. There isn't even a no reply recipient. So good luck with that if you're replying to that message. When I see a no reply from Google or Amazon, I know that hitting reply is not going to get me anything. You might as well just throw it into the Ethernet. Anyway, so that's the body of the message. Shouldn't look too surprising. If you go up to the email template, I have created one called TechNow Q&A, and that is very boring. I'll tell you that much. There's not really much happening, but I am taking advantage of this email layout. There's nothing in the subject because I use that in the email notification. There's nothing in the body because there's nothing. I use that in the email notification. But I do want this email layout. Now, the email layout can take a couple of different forms. Unfortunately, you can't get to this directly through Studio. For whatever reason, everything is not available in Studio. So back on the email system policy menu under email is layouts. And I have one called TechNow. Now, I dressed this up first with a raw HTML editor. I did not do this in ServiceNow. I also learned that you can't use a style tag. My first incarnation of this looked great when I was testing, because what I was looking for is under the notification, when you go to preview notification, I wanted this branded. When you get the messages from Hi that says you've got a change request, whatever, you'll see that it has this very new modern ServiceNow look to it, the dark green header wrapping around a subject of some type. And that's what I was after. And I modeled that up just with a flat file, doing HTML, using Chrome to view it, using a text editor to tweak it. And I got it looking like this. Only I started out using a style tag and a /style tag and putting all of my CSS in there. And then all the objects referenced it. When I tested this out and read it in Gmail, all the CSS was stripped. The only thing I can figure out, and I haven't verified this, is that the style tag is stripped with the HTML sanitizer. We have a capability on the platform that says what HTML tags are really allowed and which ones are not. When you save an HTML or an XML field, it's not necessarily going to save everything. You can whitelist certain objects and properties. I'm not going to talk about that today. We have in the past. Just look up HTML sanitizer as all one word in the documentation. You'll find out how to configure it. So once I discovered, oh yeah, I worked all this time on making this beautiful and it still looks like garbage because all this CSS was gone. That's when I had to roll up my sleeves and embed all of the CSS in each tag that was referencing it. So if I bring that up and make that big, you can see, all right, a lot of these have, here's a style, and then it worked fine. So building these was not the most fun. In the email layout, there's a few things to look for. One is notification body. That will inject the body of my message into this layout. So I really didn't have to do anything in the email itself. It's still using the mail scripts. It's still putting together everything. But that body is going to come out here. And I also put some reference links at the bottom. You can put an unsubscribe. You can put, there's a couple of other things that are in the examples of layouts that if you look through the email layouts, you can see there's a dark theme that has unsubscription and your notification preferences. Since these people do not have an account on the TechNow system, there's no preferences to adjust and they can't unsubscribe. So it's not a mailing list. It's an offering at the end. If you want to block it, go ahead, block it. But there are some other things that you can put in here. Look for email layouts and consider them when you're looking at branding your outbound messages, because you can define one layout and assign it to multiple templates. And the template could be used on multiple notifications. So you see you get this one to many, works out very well. You can define one layout and just say, hey, stick the notification body in there, and we'll have a nice logo at the top, and we'll put the body in there. We could have a standard footer on one. Do what you want. I really enjoyed building that out, and it didn't, most of the time was spent, as usual, fooling around with the CSS to try and get, is this column right? Is this the right font? Is it spacing? Don't want it smashed up against the edge of the table cell, all that good stuff. So consider using that. Notification layouts. I have reached the end of the hour, and I am going to sign off at this point. So thank you for joining me. I will not be having a Tuesday show because I will be on the road, possibly Wednesday. Tuesday night is going to be very, very late when my flight comes back. So Wednesday is up in the air, but I will at least get 1 or 2, maybe 3 more of these out this week. And that will close out March. Whew. That was fast, wasn't it? Look forward to talking to you again next time. Until then, if you learned something, such as I did, be free to share it with the world, whether that is a community post or a blog or a video, or just turning to your coworkers and saying, hey, let's go grab a cup of coffee. I got something cool to show you. And you will be a big, big help. So till then, take care. Bye.